Good evening, Oriole Nation. Welcome to the school board meeting, July 28th, 2025.
I think so. Yeah. You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, we are back from closed session. Our next item is board mission statement and agreements.
Yeah, our board mission statement is we will develop policy that is representative of our community, set goals, and lead our district by collaborating. And that mission statement is built on 3 beliefs: stand up and own it, we are one, encourage to grow. Stand up and own it is that individual push to be the best version of ourselves that we can possibly be. And when we bring things to the table, we want to make sure that we're only in the best interest of other people too as we move forward. The we are one is we do this together. We can't do this alone. We have to lean on each other to make anything work. And finally, the courage to grow is that we're continuously trying to learn for the betterment of other people.
Awesome. Thank you. Next item is consent agenda. We have 3 items in our consent agenda today. First is the approval of special meeting minutes from July 7th, 2025. The next one is approval of regular meeting minutes from June 23rd, 2025. And then the final item is the treasurer's report, which all of those details were found in our board packet. So I'll look for a motion to approve our consent agenda. I'll second, and then roll.
Matthew, yes. Geckerman?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Yes.
Next item is board members share moment of pride. So if anyone would want to take a minute to share.
I'll go first.
Yeah.
So my daughter had an opportunity to attend the Little Orioles cheer camp. And then my son did the football camp, and he's doing the basketball camp that starts tomorrow. So I think all those things are really cool opportunities to get younger kids in the district involved in sports and learning fundamentals and skills and all the things that go into sports, and getting them interested at a younger level, I think helps build our teams as we go on to higher grade levels. So it's been exciting for me to see.
I don't have a lot what's going on, but I did want to give a shout out to all the coaches. I know with the rule changes, they've been able to have contact with the athletes throughout the summer. And I know a lot of the coaches are spending a lot of significant time with the kids and making a difference in running those camps and things. It's all kind of volunteer extra work on top of what they're used to, and they're all happy to do it, which is amazing. John will be there tomorrow.
On the basketball camp.
Nice. I don't have a lot to add, being that this past month was just not a lot to speak to, but of course you can still see the lifting taking place in the morning, and that's always encouraging. You see the football team out there, kind of getting going. And although I'm never an advocate to end summer too soon, I can already see some, back to school stuff going, and there's some excitement with that too. So I'll leave it at that for this one.
Yeah. Echo. I mean, a lot of the stuff that's going on now are those extracurricular activities. I'll take a different spin to it, just like the community members that volunteer, whether it's for baseball to run the concessions. It truly takes the entire village to make those things happen. So this is a call to the community that's listening. Continue to share and continue to help. So, all right. Next item is our clerk's report.
For backpack buddies, Wade and Jen is shipping $50, and all tools NTD inspection comes in big at $1,000 once again.
Nice. Very cool. Thank you, Rick. Next item is citizens' comments. There's no audience here today, so unless someone specifically would like to talk from a citizens' comment standpoint. Okay. We'll just move on. Then superintendent's report.
Yeah. We're already here. We're going to start out. We do everything and we break it down by our strategic plan. We have 4 different core areas: safe and emotional healthy schools, learning and academics, engagement communications, and then financial operations. We've got a couple guests with us, so I just want to make sure that they can get to, you know, some of the information. So Elena, I'm gonna have you go first in terms of the safe emotional health in schools. In the seclusion and restraint report, this is something that we have to provide the DPI every single year. And maybe you can allude a little bit more of what that is, Elena, so that they have an understanding of what that is and how.
So seclusion and restraints, most of our special ed staff, except a couple of aides, are trained in what is NVCI, nonviolent crisis intervention. So typically in a situation, we always use like nonverbal de-escalation in that first. This particular report is when students have to be secluded in a separate room because of behaviors, or if they had to be restrained in some incident. So this report specifically reports just on NVCI stuff. And so this year we have had a total of 25 seclusion and restraints for 10 students. And the report that you guys saw breaks it down by school. So there was a total of 6 students at Friendship this year and 12 incidences. That's actually down from 16 the year prior. Bessie Allen had none to report this year. Same with Trevor Way. And then our one of our alternative schools, Amity, reported 0 this year too for our 2 students that are there. Genesee Lake, we have 1 student that attends there, and he had a total of 7. And then there are 3 other students that attend another alternative school. We had a total of 6 incidences for that. So this year we were reporting 25, and last year we reported 27. Yeah, that's the report for this year. Those are the numbers that we'll submit to DPI. Anyone have any questions on that?
So when it's like one, say at Friendship, where it's 1 student with 6 incidents, I mean, what kind of things do we do to try to reduce with that one particular student?
So after every 2 incidences, we do a review revise for an IEP. And then we look at placement. In this particular situation, we did look at placement, and that student is getting a more intense treatment plan through one of our alternative schools. But yeah, every 2 incidences, we do a review revise for IEPs.
Thanks.
And all but one of our students was a special ed student. Is a special ed one. So yeah.
Thanks.
Any other ones?
Anything else for Elena?
All right.
All right. Have a great night. Thanks so much.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
Thank you. No problem.
And John, I'm just gonna get to that new DPI high school crime report before I'm bringing you on. So this is something that the DPI is now requiring for all high schools to share information specific to any kind of ticket or, you know, any kind of area so that the police are involved in at the school level. And so it's just for high schools. This is the first time, again, actually gathering this information. But like asking questions about homicide, sexual assault, burglary, robbery, theft, battery, aggravated battery, arson, use of possession of alcohol, controlled substances, and then also possession of firearms, and then violation of municipal ordinance relating to disorderly conduct. So I'm just going to share with you what Horace Mann is at, and what we're going to have to submit, so you just can kind of see. The only areas were for theft. There were 3 incidents this past year. Okay. And then in terms of controlled substance, and this is like itself, like tobacco or possessing vape falls into that same thing. So there's 6 incidents in that area for the whole year. And then the final thing is violation of municipal ordinance relating to disorderly conduct. So that was outside of our school, but there was 3 situations with that. So if you look at the grand scheme of things for 400 plus schools, it's pretty impressive the amount and that we don't have in a lot of those different areas. So we're doing a pretty decent job in that spot.
So the first 2 are like within school, is that what we're saying?
Yeah, the first 2 are in school, like theft was in school, like 3 of those, and then the possession of vape or tobacco products was the 6.
Those generally would lead to like suspension or something? Or?
Yeah, it just depends. It varies. Like, so most of the times with any of those, they're gonna have some type of out of school suspension that goes along with it. Sometimes it even goes to pre-expulsion situations. If it was like use of marijuana or possession of marijuana, then we have the pre-expulsion so that we sit down with the family, we sit down with the student, we give them an agreement. If they're willing to abide by the agreement and what we're sharing, then we permit, them coming back to our schools based upon AODA treatment to, you can't be at school before or after, you're excluded from, school events. Those kind of things are all part of that process or that agreement. Okay. Any other questions on that? So that information will go to DPI. We gotta,
Once a year we'll do it.
what's that? Once a year now, yes. So it's brand new. So now you'll be able to see, and that information will actually be on report cards somehow. But you got to think about like all schools now have to report that, which will be, I think, pretty interesting. And you'll see the variance of, anyway, we'll get there when we get there. But I want to give you a heads up on that zone. The next thing, we got John Graff is coming from CISA 6, and he's been doing a lot of work already with our schools, all level schools. He started working with us, spring? When
March, February,
Yeah.
March, something like that.
And we called him and Eric Larson, another CISA 6 person, in to start looking at our data and really breaking that down. And then that has led to different things that we're going to do in terms of a plan for moving forward, including that letter I shared with you, but a little bit more in depth. But I wanted John to come in and kind of share from his perspective and like what he's going to be planning on doing for this upcoming year. He's going to tell a little bit about himself, what he does, and where he's been maybe a little bit. And then, So,
Yes, I'm Johnny Graff. I'm an assessment and learning consultant with CISA 6. Prior to that, I was a high school principal at school, about 2,200 students. I also have the luxury, I always say, of working in an elementary as well. So I've spanned K-12 education, which is a lot of fun, to be honest. You see the differences, and we always go, oh, high school kids, they're the same as elementary kids. They're just bigger, faster, stronger. All the old school weightlifting stuff. But and I echo the comments. You talked about camps and high school athletics, and from my former high school principal mindset, wow, do they put in a lot of time. They put in a lot of effort, the things that people don't see to run camps. I just had my son at a shooting camp this morning for basketball, and to get volunteers out there to do that is really cool. So that's a great thing. So I have a wife that keeps me level-headed. She's an elementary teacher. So I always get the feedback from her, and I'm often like, I'm thinking about doing this. Is it a good idea? And she's very honest with me, so that's a good thing. But a big thing this year is, we started February and March talking with Matt and talking with the team about data within the district. And it was awesome because I think within the first 2 or 3 weeks, we had a staff meeting at Horace Mann and Bessie Allen to talk about, here's the current state of your data. So I was just getting text messages from a principal about their data builds. And so we really dig deep in the data with districts. So I think last year we had at least 75 data retreats that Eric and I conducted throughout the state and actually even throughout the country. So we go all over the place and talk about data. And a big thing this year was figuring out how do we create a really strong data cadence for North Fond du Lac. Because like anything, my father was a hospital administrator. How are we patients? What are the outcomes? All of that stuff is so important to create the foundation to say what's next. And if you don't know what's next, it's really hard to figure out what's the strategy we're going to deploy to ensure that we get results. I have such belief in it that when I was a high school principal, my superintendent asked me once, what do you need? And I said, Eric Larson and new furniture. And Eric is my boss at CISA 6, and he did our data retreat. And I just remember teachers going, that's the level that you get to. So if you want to go to the next slide, I'll even talk. So ensuring access to data. What we do with teams, and so tomorrow I'll be in the district for the next 2 days doing this, is we take it from the 30,000 foot view, the high level, all the way down to in fact, I was just looking at how did you do compared to different standards versus the state. So, hey, in this standard, we struggled. What are we going to do? And one of the things that often happens is districts it's busy, right? Being in education is it's 180 days of being in front of
an audience, and how do you get ahead of that? And so building that picture of right away, hey, we need to space out our practice. We need to make sure that we're infusing these standards more often throughout the state of the school year. So to give you a little more background about myself also, beyond just being a former administrator, I also worked in curriculum and instruction, and they call it visible learning certified educator. So I actually go out to San Diego almost every year, go to a high school and really just what are the best practices in education. And so we talked about that with the team. So we go all the way from that 30,000 foot view down to the street level when it comes to the data. How did Friendship Learning Center do with their Ames Web testing that was required through Act 20 versus how did students do on the forward exam? Sometimes it's funny because people will be like, it's so much data, and they go, yes, your brain will be tired, which is a good thing. But how do you narrow this down to make meaning from the data and develop that next step? And then the third one, this is my favorite slide from DPI. I've only picked one that I really like, it's this one. But like, how do you clarify expectations for data use? Now that we have it, what rules and procedures are we going to put into place to ensure that we're following up on it, that we're holding ourselves accountable, that we're building the knowledge and the skills to use with the staff? So for example, I think it's September 17th, I'll be here at Friendship, working with Lauren and her team and really getting their collaborative team meetings going. And then how do you lead that culture of data use, whether it's in your leadership team meetings, your staff meetings, and create a real true data cadence that is, because as I said earlier, it's 180-day like sprint, is missing at times. So if you go to the next slide, I'll kind of even walk over here. So we go, honestly, and I've met already. What's cool is I've already met with the team this summer. I've met with, Bessie Allen I meet with next week. Horseman already met with. Friendship met with Matt last week at the CISA 6 Leadership Retreat down in Port Washington. But we go all the way from your state report card, which I don't know how you follow up something more exciting than we're adding crime data into the report card. But we'll look at what does your state report card analysis say? What are all the indicators? Because there's key pages to understand on that report card in order to say this is how healthy our system is. We do a standards analysis. So we break down what percentage your students got it right. We are able to break down how much time did they spend on the Wisconsin forward exam, because there are kids that really take their time, and then there's a few that you have to know it might go a little quicker than others, and just to be able to get that gauge. Pre-ACT and ACT data, we'll talk about, hey, this is the ACT I always refer to as a system score. Because really when you think about it, you think it's a high school data point. It really is 11, 12 years of education. This is what we got to. But then also, how did we do in pre-ACT growth from 9 to 10? How did we do from growth 9 to 11? And what's nice is this year, instead of walking in February, March, we got the process going last year, and now we're able to capitalize on it for the upcoming school year. The 10,000 foot view, and I have an image of iReady, so you're making a switch to a diagnostic tool, iReady, grades what K8 or is it 1A, whatever it may be. But it's a really predictable tool to how students will also do on the Wisconsin forward exam. So I'll be working with each administrator to kind of create that data cadence. How often do we come back to it? How do we review it? Whether it's that 30,000 foot view data or the iReady data or classroom data. So how do we pull that in? We'll work with each grade level to be able to figure out, when you look at the data, what is it telling you? What are the students that you might need to focus on from, let's say, the fall window to the winter window? And then in the winter, what we might talk about is what students did make 40% growth or below. So we'll talk about all the students to be able to go, hey, if we didn't see the growth that we expected, what do we need to do? And then how do we capitalize on those that are already making growth? And then in the spring, you always have to do, this is what's missed sometimes in schools, because it's like a baseball game sometimes. It's 9 innings, and what are you, tired in the 9th inning? It's like, oh my gosh, we have all these things coming up. There's graduation, there's events, there's field days. We'll make sure to recap the data in a really strong way with staff to be able to go, what went well, what didn't go well. Because every year, you're going to see things that really took off, and you're going to see areas where we could have made improvements. And that will help with planning going into the next school year. And And then finally, that street level data of looking at what is our classroom grades. So like, we talk about pre-ACT and ACT sitting up at that 30,000 foot view. We'll do a comparison of ACT results in GPA. How predictable is it, or how unpredictable is it? You always find some really unique ones, but they're good conversations to be able to search and scan the data to go, what's the trend that we're seeing? How do we improve our assessments? Which is some of the work I did last year at Bessie Allen and Horace Mann was, let's go through and make sure that we have high quality, rigorous assessments. And when I say rigor, there may be simplistic questions, but how do we build up our knowledge base so that when teachers look at assessments, they're able to say, I know the next step. Best practices and then collaborative teams. The research in education says collaborative teams are one of the most important things that you can have. I think back to my teaching career, which was on the west side of Madison in central Wisconsin. When I had a really strong partner, it was really nice because you're able to bounce ideas off. It's like if you're baseball or basketball and you don't have good assistant coaches, it's lonely. If you have good assistant coaches, you're able to bounce your ideas off of each other and really create a plan for what's best. So getting them to really understand, hey, when we meet as a collaborative team, we let the data drive our actions. And then how do we make sure that every time we come back, we have a new data set to look at? So that's going to really help develop this data culture. And for example, the state report card analysis will be done at every level to make sure that every level has like the same messaging that's going out. And you're able to come back to what are the trends in the system that we may need to course correct. And that data comes out, and we talk about it usually around October, November, which then allows people to go, okay, we got our first round of iReady, where we looked at our pre-ACT and ACT. Where do we possibly have to go again? What's our next step? So we've even talked about what are some of our instructional practices that we're aiming at. And I appreciate the team here because it's not let's just chase the next shiny thing. So I also do artificial intelligence trainings for CISA 6, and if it's not used appropriately, it is a shiny thing to chase. So we've talked a lot about how can we use it, but then also what's that instructional strategy that can take us next steps. So next slide. And this is my last slide. I try to keep it really simple for today. It's just how do we get from that current to that desired state? I showed you the slide that I appreciated. We've done those kind of initial things. We have our data days that are scheduled for the middle of August coming up, where it's going to be nice because it's the staff and I going through that, allowing them to ask questions. We'll have a data process in there, and then in the fall we're going to start to really work on what's that CT, the collaborative team process that we're going to go through. How are we going to review that data with our team again? Because what often can happen, of course I get a call from the district right now, but we will fly through it and then we don't come back to it. How do you make sure that whoever sees the data is able to take it from working memory to long-term memory, so that when they're making instructional decisions in the classroom, they have a clear understanding of what should be that next step with that student. Mid-year, as I said, we'll kind of get the team back together, really analyze that. How's our strategy going, and what is the evidence behind that strategy? I always tell people I get really scared when districts talk generically, like they're doing really well. And I'm like, what does that mean? My expectation of well is maybe much different than you. So we'll talk about what are those things that we're seeing, what's the assessments that we're pulling in, so we can also increase that ACT GPA comparison so that it is actual results indicated thing, where sometimes it's like, there's no connection between ACT and GPA at times. And you'll be shocked by it, but it's like, what's happening? What are we missing? What could potentially be falling through the cracks? And then in the spring, hopefully there's more of that handover of ownership, strategies for each data window to review, and then, hey, what's our next steps building forward? So I'm really excited to start my work in North Bond Du Lac this school year. I already feel like we've started, which is good, and we have a plan going into it. Just met with Dwayne last week, right on the same page. Same with Warren and Friendship. Really making sure that we're intentional and focused to start this year.
When you talk about strategy development, kind of what level does that go down to?
Right to the student level. What is that strategy that we're carrying out with students within our lessons? Or how are we teaching them? So an example is I did an observation in the classroom this school year, and it was note-taking was what they were doing. And I said to the principal, we were doing in this observation. Kids were doing notes, but how were they referencing them? How were they coming back? So then we took that to the leadership team with, hey, you have an instructional strategy that actually note-taking is about a year's worth of growth if you do it right. So how do we improve that? So it goes from the strategy of the leadership team and the staff down to the student level.
Can you just talk really briefly about Hattie's work, because just so they understand that year's worth of growth versus.
Yeah,
just
so
when you say
John
that stuff.
Hattie has all these studies from all over. He has 800 in his original book that he published, and he's now up to 2,100 meta-analyses. So they pulled together studies from across the world about what instructional practices work and which ones don't. And then he gives it an effect size. And an effect size of 0.4 is a year's worth of growth. So when we look at his visible learning MetaX, which is a website that you can go to, you'll say, hey, this strategy, homework is always a fun one, right? We always love homework to talk about that. So homework's a 0.29 effect size. So it's one of those where it has the potential to accelerate learning, but then we dig deeper into it as far as what the research goes beyond, and Hattie breaks it down to, at the elementary level, it's a 0.15, so not a lot of effect. You know, I think of my kids, I have a 7 and a 9-year-old, read at home. That's one of your biggest things, and possibly mom is grilling you on some math questions because she happens to be a teacher. But then at the high school is a 0.45 effect size, so it actually really elevates, but it's, what is quality homework? What is that maybe practice that is at the right level for those students, and then how do we come back to it? So he has over 300 instructional strategies in his database, and I will tell you a majority of them work, but which one is best for your context? Because you can chase this shiny thing, or you can say, this is our context. In our situation, this is the best next step. So I often coach people to go, don't just pick the one that is because there's ones out there that's like 1.01 effect size. And you go, well, if you double almost 2.5 times our student growth, but it might not be the best for your environment. So which one is best based off your current context?
And done with fidelity.
Yeah, and done with duration, frequency, and intensity. Like, how long are you going to do it? How frequent are you going to monitor it? What's the intensity in the classroom that you expect?
Can you talk a little bit about like what CT days would look like on the Wednesdays? We're really trying to like put a packaged agenda together so that we know that we're getting the data on the regular for our people. So, I mean, for what you know, for what we're doing already.
Yeah, no. So one of the things I will do is within your school report card, there's a section called the target group. So your bottom quartile of students. And what we do within the data days is we'll look at who are those bottom quartile students. So we'll have a projected list. There's an actual list that'll come out in September, but it's usually pretty similar. And what we'll do for those is like the first 5 minutes will be focused on how's the bottom quartile doing. But we're going to narrow it down to pick 5 kids within your bottom quartile. You know, or something.
Yes.
All right. But so like pick 5 kids, and each unit will change to 5 kids so that we're hitting across the span. But as I said earlier, I get scared when it's generic comments, because if you just say, hey, let's look at the whole bottom quartile in 5 minutes, you don't have time for that. You're going to go over it. One of the coaching points that I'll make is that at 5 minutes we transition, because we want it to be valuable for all team members. So then what we'll do is we'll transition into kind of, what is that strategy that we selected? So what evidence do you have around that? And then what assessment data are you bringing to the table for the week? And being able to review that data to be able to inform what's an action step based off of what I'm seeing in my classroom. You onboarded Amplify at the elementary level last year for K5, correct? And one of the things that is there is it's a great curriculum, but it's a really rigorous curriculum. So when we look at the assessments, how are we getting out ahead of that? And then how do we ask intentional questions each week so we get 80% of our students to pass each unit? And I always just set that as a bar that we want 4 out of 5 students passing that assessment. So we'll look at the data, whether it's that formative, which is that weekly kind of informal data that we're collecting, or an end of unit assessment, and then we'll create some action steps. That'll be about 15 to 20 minutes in there. And then the next 15 to 20 minutes is, what are we going to be intentional about the next week to ensure that we're capturing data again, so that we're very specific on what we need to do. We may not have an assessment or a data piece that we're like really thrilled about. So during that 15 to 20 minutes, we may create one. So this last year, with Bessie Allen and Horace Mann, I also worked with them on what's quality questioning. So how do we develop those quality questions and take back to our class so that we can bring that data for the next week, and then we'll kind of wrap up each time. We'll also be working with APs or assistant principals on how do we balance and pull out groups as well, so we can talk about specific students to ensure that there's alignment with instructional strategies. There are kids that sometimes get pulled out of classrooms or might have missed some attendance. So how do we make sure that we have direct alignment in education? We say from tier 1 to tier 2 to tier 3. In the classroom all the time is tier 1. Tier 2 might be getting in-class support with maybe a little pull-out support in a small group. Tier 3 might be getting that pull-out consistently. So how do we make sure that if I'm a tier 3 student and I get pulled out of the classroom a lot, that when I'm in the classroom, I maximize my time. So we'll have a pull-out section to that, so that your instructional strategists, coaches in the district, special education can make sure I'm in alignment with my special ed teacher, my reading interventions. So
What's the makeup of these teams?
usually it's like grade level. When you're talking about your elementary, it'll be grade level. When you get to the middle school, that's where you usually will end up with some department and grade level splits. At the high school, it's usually done by department. So because one of the things that you'll want to talk about is, hey, in our ACT data, let's say geometry wasn't great. Well, geometry usually is like a sophomore class. So you have a whole year. So like, hey, how do we pull in ACT style questions at the junior level once in a while? So department at the high school, grade level, department split at the middle, because you also have a lot of students that you talk about in common. Elementary will be grade level.
Can you talk just briefly about iReady and how that will, I mean, I know you're not working with iReady, but it's just so they have an understanding about how that assessment tool
Yes.
will work for our students.
So iReady is a tool that kids will take. My kids do iReady in the district they attend. And I love it because they'll take their fall diagnostic assessment and it'll kind of test them on skills at their level. And then what it'll do is it'll determine, hey, you're a third grade on-level student, but in math, you might have measurement and data at second grade level. So then what happens is the platform essentially talks to the personalized pathway within there, and you might get some measurement and data at a second grade level, so that you're working on skills as you're still moving ahead. Reading and math are about an hour a piece if you really take your time within it. But I also can tell you, I have a wife that's a second grade teacher, and she looks at it consistently. Like I'll walk upstairs and it's like, you're looking at your iReady data right now? And she's like, yeah. And it's really cool because it is a friendly tool that they can access a teacher toolbox to be able to use things for strategies on certain standards, but they also get personalized data on ELA and math growth on what is that student working on. During those meetings, we talk about the collaborative team. When they talk about that bottom quartile or certain students, they may go, hey, the student's really struggling. How did they do in iReady? Can I give them a lesson? Because the teacher can also assign lessons. Hey, I'm going to assign a lesson on this skill that the student struggled with. I'm going to monitor it, and I'm going to look at what is their results. So it's a great diagnostic tool to be able to give you data back that can pretty accurately predict your Wisconsin forward results. And that's where we'll also be working on what's that assessment culture. Because I always think if you stop class time, it must be very valuable. And to get that data back and be able to use it will be a valuable thing, and iReady will give the right data for each teacher.
So how often is a student interacting with iReady?
As far as like the diagnostic that takes a long time, fall, winter, spring.
Okay.
The personalized pathway, because you have the personalized pathway,
Yes.
correct? You'll interact with it. Like, so for example, my son usually interacts with it between 39 and 50 minutes. I usually say about 2 lessons a week.
Okay.
That just keeps them, just like I talked about data cadence, it keeps them on a cadence for making growth in the areas that you struggle with. And what's really interesting though is like, so my daughter took it in the spring, and I was like, man, she did not do well in this section. And I kind of quizzed her a little bit, and she did really well. I didn't know their teacher, and her teacher adjusted the level in just a matter of seconds. I was able to go back to it and be like, yes, this makes sense. So there's a lot of flexibility within it as well. But 39, 50 minutes, ELA math. Okay. Just to make sure you have a good cadence on those skills that you might have struggled with, that the teacher within their day isn't always able to go, hey, come here, I need to help you, but they can monitor it.
Is that independent typically? I mean,
Yeah, so we'll also work on how do you monitor that within a class block, but then it's also nice because I sign on with my kid's QR code and I just log into the system and they're able to access it as well.
The nice thing is it generates that without a teacher having to do a whole bunch of extra work, which takes that out of their world, which then they can focus on those specific areas, and then also provides those interventions that they might just not know that they don't know how to give that and provide that, and it's right there for them, for the students.
It fills gaps, like my son's doing it this summer as well. So he was on it today, and it was like adding with 4-digit numbers or thousands and 10,000s, and it's like it's one of the things that he's a good mathematician, but it's an area where I can see where he makes a mistake, and I'm able to watch that. So it gives a great tool to be able to give feedback as well. And often what I'll see in districts, and I've worked with districts in classrooms, is they'll take labs and they're looking for, are you taking notes, which is a good thing to practice. Like, are you writing it out so that I can see where you might have messed up and I can give feedback right away.
Other questions for John? I want to bring him in because he's an integral part of the plan and what we're doing to really take out and look at achievement quite
Well,
rightly,
you're
basically. So
able to see, I sometimes at the high school level, as a high school principal, we would get the results and be like, okay, they're the results, but what is that deep dive into it? And I would say one of the things we're best at is being able to take a deep dive all the way down to your standards, your comparison to the state. We'll even be able to look at how did you in grades 3 through 8, how did you do on this standard in 2024 versus 2025? Well, this last year we have Amplify, and Amplify maybe had a different way of approaching something, or maybe didn't hit something as strong. What can we do to improve that?
it is Mr. John.
Oh, thanks, it's exciting.
It really is. Like I have 2 straight data days coming up, and they're nice because the teachers get to really see. I thought that wasn't going as well, or yes, that really worked. And we're able to even go down to the percentile increase at each grade level from the previous years forward. So it is a really nice, like I said, it's a reflective tool. Data doesn't have a heartbeat. Don't give it that emotion, but be reflectable with it.
I think what we'll do is provide you all with some dates that he's coming in. So if you want to come in and watch some of that professional development with our staff, you can come and see what he does, and he does such a great job for us as well.
I think it's such an important, such an important part is, do we have the data to move our students forward? Because they're ultimately citizens of the community, hopefully, and we want to make sure that they're making growth each year. So I'm excited for it as well.
thank you.
Hey, have a great rest of your night.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
we'll talk soon.
Yep. Yeah, no problem.
All right, moving into CISA retreat review. So, what is it now? 2 weeks ago, our administration team went to Port Washington. CISA 6 held a retreat led by Ted Knightsky, who's the CEO of CISA 6 right now. And we got the focus on it was mental wellness and how were you doing within those areas and how do you frame yourself as best you possibly can. But we had a chance. What's so great about it, not only is it about the wellness related to what we're doing and where we're at, but we had a chance as a team to really have some really good conversations about how do we do the best we possibly can for the people that we're working with every single day. But also who are we with each other too, so that we can be the most efficient and like, I guess cohesive team as we possibly can be, and just getting some stuff out there where that not a fear of like, okay, if I say this or that, we just want to establish some really strong conditions in those meetings or any meetings that we have so that we can be the best we can be without going in there and being somewhere we're not, or having, the parking lot conversation after the meeting. We just got to get it out there, and so we can do better for all of us. And so the whole overall, like, it was a phenomenal time for our people, but we got some great, the other thing that Ted does so well, he provides like a ton of different like tools that you can go back and use like almost instantly. One of our asks was from our group was like, how do I delegate better? And so he has this, the 4 Ds of your to-do list, and delegate, who else can and should do this. And then it's drop, what do I need to stop doing? Defer, what can I do later? And then do is number 4, what do I need to do? And I think if we asked our leadership people, I think one of the first things is like, sometimes we feel that if we don't do it ourselves, it might not get done to the level of what we want it to, but then how do you teach and coach up those other people so that you can get that, quality back? But that was just one example of many. There was like a qualities and behaviors, which we kind of do through the cultural playbook, like do's and don'ts, acceptable behaviors from our staff and what we should be at. Everything from respectful body language to engaging with others, to speaking firmly but with respect, humbly owning your gaps. Don'ts are like eye rolling, smirks, interrupting, stonewalling people, meeting after the meeting. But if you don't present those, and that's what we'll do again this year with our culture, where we have above the line, below the line concepts under specifically courage to grow, because that's the belief we're going to focus on this year. What does that look like? What does it sound like? What doesn't it look like? What doesn't it sound like? And really, again, paint that fence to say, this is what we do. So there's no guessing. It's all clarity back into it as well. Seeing if there's anything else really, again, he's got a ton of different things, but I think the fruitful thing is we had a chance as a team to walk through some of these things and have these conversations before getting into other things, and just having that ability to get to know each other more and how we work together was really a solid part about it.
Who all attended?
So it was all of our leadership team. So it was all the principals. So we had Tiffany Dolan, we had Jillian Escobar, Dwayne Hardkoff, Lauren Biolo, Brad Ranke, and then we had our 2 associates, Willie Frankie from FLC, as well as Matt Quadra from high school. So all those folks attended. Awesome. And what was also nice is there's a lot of local districts there too that you can kind of bounce ideas off, and Ted does a nice job of getting people to engage with other folks from other places. And he does like this 6-pack, 4-pack shot in a beer kind of thing. And so it's like the 6-pack is your body, your group of people. The 4-pack you get with 4 different folks from different districts, different levels. And then the shot in a beer buddy is like just one person that's probably in the same position as you are, and you can have those conversations. And we did a lot of like just walking through, talking through, and you learn a lot from just what other people are doing. And I always come out of it like, we're doing really well. We've got some good things in place, and there's some really good things stuff, but you also get a couple little nuggets too that help you moving forward as well. So just good for our leaders to continue to grow on that too. But that was kind of the whole overall retreat experience. Port Washington for 2 days was probably the 2 hottest days of the year, I think it was, and we were running back, and that tornado, I think that was our tornado weather, I would say, more than anything, but it went really well. Please feel free to ask like any of the principals or directors about it, but I think they'd also say similar things from what we were doing as well. So, okay, engagement, communications, website updates. We just haven't like really gone through that with tooth and comb for a while, and we did a lot of just some changes, and they're still being worked on right now. Karen Hoff is like our major person that like updates and changes that, but we principals and directors, we all established like things that could change on it. One example is like we have staff resources on that, and it was really never used. in a lot of districts, when you hit staff resources, it takes you to a login, right? So then we can put all of our information under that same area when they log in that is specific to staff. I had built in the past a separate website just for our staff. Now we're gonna be able to convert that so it's a one-stop shop where they can just go to the website, get all that information there, log in. We had a lot of updating to do with personnel, messaging. Some of our stuff on there was just years old. So just taking an overall look at everything and getting rid of some things, but also adding some things that, hadn't been on there for a while. But I think overall it's going to be, again, as user-friendly as possible for all of our people, but it just is going to be more of that communication, that transparency, letting people know what's going on as well.
Do we have a plan then in place to keep it maintained moving forward? Or like, what does that look like?
So like my plan is our principals to continue to watch. And when we hear anything, we'll bring it back to our meetings and say like, hey, we're hearing a lot of people need this or want this. Is there any way we can do this? And then what we need to do is on that same document, then Karen can just make those shifts or changes on the actual site itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and when you had said there's been older stuff on there, I'm just thinking, how do we
Keep
track
going.
of it? Yeah, so that we don't have to do it in 2 years again.
Right. Very good point.
I don't know what the plan is for the app, but the directory is still
It's still the same?
not working on the app.
Okay.
It works right, it looks right on the website. but
And you're talking about the NFDL app, right?
The website directory looks okay, but the one on when they went to that new format on the app, it seems like it's broken something.
Okay. Got it.
Is Skyward done being up there?
So Skyward's in the process of, and basically what Skyward is our student management system. So that's where you can access your attendance, your behaviors, all those other things that your students are going through. It's now called, the updated version is called Cumulative, spelled not like cumulative that you used to, it's like QMLATIV. So or whatever, how that works. You're gonna have a new user face too with that as a parent, and a different app face that should be more user-friendly for all of our families. So the ones like clunky from like the 1980s of the Skyward, but this one will be a little bit more user-friendly in terms of like icons and easily seeing things. So not there yet, but that will come out at registration. So
And there'll be like messaging to help
how it
parents.
works, and absolutely, great question.
And that change that was Skyward changing, correct?
So Skyward is eventually going to turn everything over to Cumulative.
Okay, that was.
We're just getting ahead of the game a little bit by starting it up, and like Ivan and Kayla Schmitting is going to be did a lot of lifting on that just to try to generate and make it look a little bit different. It's really the same thing, just looks a little bit different in terms of the platform and a little more user friendly for people. Okay. Speaking of updates on the website, student handbooks, I guess my question to you, is there any, questions that you have about any of the handbooks or changes that were on there that you need me to clarify or provide any information? Hopefully you were able to use the highlights and just get through that somewhat easily. I know there's a lot of pages there, but just want to make sure you could. Okay.
Well, the highlight thing is helpful, thankful again.
Yeah.
So.
We were trying to emphasize as much as possible. I think, and then there was a couple other ones I think that Natalie reached out to you just saying, hey, there's really nothing new in here other than staff. I think it was like Tiffany's group and stuff like that, but good. Employee guide, any questions about that specific? There are a couple changes, like we talked a lot about the workday, like a time period versus your salaried people. Let's treat you as professionals too here as well. But the whole concept, and if you look at the reading and the educational guide, is like when kids are in our building, you're here with us. So if you have a prep, you're still in the building helping, either working on your stuff or helping kids too. And I'm talking primarily at the high school, middle school level, because our elementary, they get minutes to basically get their stuff done. So it's a little bit different that way, but making sure that people are there during that time. But We used to have a 7:30 to 3:30. We're eliminating that from that, just to be able to provide a little bit more of that professionalism too in that way. The other side of it though too is that we had, in the past, we've been paying a lot for different stipend pieces in the summer and other things. We're trying to get to the sense of like, this is part of your position. We're not going to abuse you on this. We're going to tell you way ahead of time if we need to do this, but every so often you're going to be called that we need you to come in and give us some insight without paying an additional stipend within those areas. So we did change that a little bit in the past. Not that we gave stipends for everything, but considering the referenda and other things, that we just want to make sure we maintain those dollars there too. Any other questions on the guide? Those are the big areas I think have changed. And we're trying to get it in a condition spot too. Like last year we had the guide and it was in Canva and it was a little bit tricky to see for people. So we're still working on that makeup so that everybody has that ability to see it. Our staff has to read through that. They have to go through like mandated training from the DPI. So, and once they do all those things, they sign off saying, I agree to what that is, including in our special ed population too. So if you have IEPs on your caseload or in your classroom, you need to read and understand what those goals are of those students and what, some of those things that you can best help them out with. So all those things come back to a signature basically saying, I've read through this information. I know what this is. I know who to ask questions to if I need it, but it's all part of that process of making sure that we're all on the same page moving forward with everybody. Okay, let's see if there's anything else on that. State budget updates, I gave you that a little bit. I think there was an SSA article or SAA article in there just talking about how this was increasing in the special ed area and a couple different zones, but there is some increase from the state, which is obviously helpful for us. It will help us in terms of the special ed area because of our percentage of special ed. But more to come in terms of like how that all breaks down because there's still questions about exactly how much we will receive. I know that it says 42 to 45, but we could get closer to 40. Now,
Because it's uncertain. So
right.
I've listened in on there, expecting it to be more around
40.
40.5.
Right. And that if you looked at like the last time around with this, we were at 33 they were saying, but we were more like 30 or 30.5. So you'll see a little bit of a drop, which I actually said. What's that?
Still helpful.
It's still helpful, yes. And then obviously the per pupil stays at 325 based on the 400-year mandate of the law right now that Governor Evers put into play, which they're trying to fight right now in the Supreme Court. So we'll see how that all breaks down. I have one more thing for you all too. This is a review, and this wasn't in like the actual minutes, but just a review of our strategic plan. And this is, Rick, you helped out with this last time around, just making it like a one pager, and now it's gone over to a page and a quarter maybe here, but the color status means we're either at the same for yellow, we're at the same, we're doing the same, about the same work. Green means we've advanced like a star or a ranking, and then red means we've went lower in a couple of those different areas. And and just walking through this really briefly, we did go up a fraction in the ELA local assessment in terms of like what we were doing within our, at this time it was not iReady, but it was our other assessment, but elementary wise and the middle school combined in that raised that just a little bit because of the local. Math stayed around the same again for the local area. So that's still in that same ballpark. Student connectors, I have to tie back into that because this is all your youth apprenticeship, but I do know that we went from like 30 students last year to this upcoming year, like 75 our youth apprenticeship, which is a significant amount, which is great. But that's a complete game changer in terms of like, again, that kind of connector area.
What was the measurable on that? Is it like percentage of?
It's not only YA, it's like AP, it's like CAP, it's anything that we were connected to, yes.
Okay.
MPTC, anything that they were getting dual credit for.
Yeah.
So it's a culmination of all those areas. And at that time, I think we were at that, in that 50% to 59%. So I'm gonna do some more digging with Jill and Jenny at the high school level so we can get that updated. If you look at the finance portion, bond rating remained around the same. Fund balance is up because we were in that like 14%, I believe, at the time before. Now we're in that 18, 19% for sure. The audit still finding really one finding. I think there was no concern though overall with that process, so that's a good thing. Facility plan, we got to work on that. That's another thing we talked about a little bit of like, what are those, we do annual of like, what are the most needed areas of capital improvements? But in the past, we haven't had the money to actually put aside to actually make some of those things happen. But we've got that list. Now it's like saying, okay, what would make sense in terms of what we need? But who knows if the roof all of a sudden leaks and we have to do some, or the boiler does this, we have to be able to have that money to be able to set aside.
Is that like big replace, like that's what?
Big replacement stuff. So like the track, it's got about another 2 years and it's going to be not safe for our runners.
Well, when you share that out, could we, I know you're gonna
Yeah.
prioritize it, could there be like some dollar amounts associated with it, just so we're able to see?
Okay.
I think that would be helpful.
I can do that for the August.
And I understand that that'll change
Yep.
depending on when.
But you can get a sense
Yeah.
of like what it is and okay. Our technology plan has been the same for the last couple of years. It's in place, and nothing's really been drastically done with it because we keep replacing what we need, and we've been doing pretty well with that without adding a whole bunch of dollars to that. And thankfully to Ivan, who's worked on the grants and other areas to minimize that amount and finding the best resources with less dollars. And really appreciate his work and his efforts in there because that's not an easy thing to do. Our mod rate, and this is based upon like the last 3 years in that area. So we have gone down, and this is the injury kind of like situation. Now this past year we were way better than the year before, but since the year before is also cooked into that, we are still like down a scale on our ratings. Student activity, and that's the student engagement that's specific to how many things kids are actively involved in. So that's gone up a little bit, 1 star in terms of between that 70 and 84%, which is great. We have not served the families for a while. And the only reason why we didn't serve the families last year was because of all the referendum communication and actually doing that. So we didn't want to overdo what we were doing. But the first time around, we had a really nice positivity, and we'll do that again this fall to see where people are at with that. Staff engagement, we also did not survey in the spring because of all the other things that were going on, but we will come back to that so we can see a little bit better of where that was. But the last time people engaged or really wanted to come to work was in that 92% range, which is awesome. Staff retention it actually got better. The turnover is lower from the last time around, so we're in that between 4 and 9%, which is always great, retaining our staff and keeping them. Our attendance for students is roughly around the same area, so that really didn't move up or down, but is in that yellow, which is a good thing too. And then student engagement. This is, I think I'm just trying to recall quickly. Yeah, this is where they feel like they have one connected adult. And now we're in that 90% range for all, like on average for all of our schools. I think we're at 91%. So that's awesome that we have kids who have at least one trusted adult in their buildings to make sure that they feel a sense of belonging. And then if you flip on the back, the student well-being survey, this comes from our YRBS data, or youth risk behavior survey, and the overall of what that looks like. And we're still in that same frame in terms of the YRBS and that's taken by our 9th and 11th grade students, and then they bring that information back every so often. Safety plan still exists. We still got some tweaking to do on a couple different areas for this upcoming year, but that's been pretty much reviewed, revised annually, actually monthly. So we're in that same spot. So that's a great thing.
Got a question on
Yes,
that?
please.
Is that, I know Brad put a lot of effort into that. With Brad's new responsibilities, is he still gonna be part of that, or is that being handed off?
We're going to transition, but we haven't figured out who that transition is to yet. But Brad is going to like begin with it and then
Okay.
hand that off. I mean, he'd still be a part of it, but
Correct.
not leading or
Yeah.
facilitating the process.
Okay.
So we will look to that too. Great question. Student behavior, we went down a little bit. So this is like out of school suspensions and behavior in general. We had an uptick a little bit, specifically at the middle school level this year. And I think that kind of correlates with, new leadership coming in, making sure things are done. And so you see a little bit of uptick in making sure it's right. Our high school numbers are really down from what we've had in the past. And even hearing those crime statistics, it's quite significant from what we were, which is fun.
That also included, I know we have does that include that cell phone policy as
Yes.
well?
Yeah, everything goes into that. So
This was the first year, correct?
first year at the high school, yeah, which I think went really pretty well considering everything that was going on. And then staff wellness we're working on too. That's another gap part where we just want to make sure our people in good places. I mean, specific to like all our staff get EAP services so they can connect with counselors, not only for themselves, but for their families. I mean, there's just so many different things that they don't even know or are aware of or even know to use them. But how can we provide and give them, the things that they're right at their fingertips that they just don't know about? Teledoc, I mean, they can call any kind of doctor within a couple minutes and they can get what they need done to help them out and move forward. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of an overview of the year in review. Obviously, there's places to continue to need work on, but it kind of gives a sense of that. We will put that on our website eventually as we get a little bit more keyed up, but then everybody can see specifically like where we are at with those areas. Because I think there's a lot of celebration in on there too, because there's a lot of people put a lot of time working on that.
If we put it on our website, are we going to have like a little explanation, overview of what it?
We've got
I
that.
know we know a little bit.
Right,
but-
there's a longer one that we had
Okay.
through CISA-6 that we'll use that. It'll just be a
Gotcha.
little bit longer. So it'll be probably two things. You'll have one of these, just so it's a quick one over, and then you'll have the longer explanation so you can see everything as well. Okay. Any other questions on any of those pieces? That's all I got, other than we met with Neolo, which is our policy review. So we're gonna have to get back together again at some point in time in August. We went through like 2 different sets of things, and there's a couple things that are a little bit more urgent and pressing that we gotta get through, so we can do that in August, but at the August board meeting, first read, and then in September, we'll get that second one done. And then
We'll have to try to get together
prior
the
to
next-
the August meeting, yeah. So if we can maybe
Yeah.
talk about the date
Coordinate some dates
Yeah.
and stuff.
in August yet.
Are those out there in that draft?
They are, so you can look at all the draft, and all the like additions or adds, so you can see if you really want to go in there and check all the things. There's 2 sections of 34.1, 34.2. So you can just go through that, and there's not a lot of like major, it's like just new additions to some of the things that are going on within the federal, so. Okay, that's all I've got.
Excellent. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Next item is new business. So we have 4 items. The first one is to consider approval of our public comment policy adjustment. So I know we've heard that previously a couple times along, so I don't know if there's anything else anyone wanted to share. Otherwise, we'll look for approval to pass that adjustment to that policy. So for a motion for that.
Second.
Okay, the roll.
Matthew, yes. Hunter,
Yes.
Billings,
Yes.
Yes. Next item is consider approval of the new Act 20 retention and advancement policy. So I'll pause to see if there are any questions. Otherwise, I'll look for a motion to approve.
And just a reminder, what that was specific to like, how do we determine students who are in those frames? And it's not just like a sole, like we're not moving that person on, it's a group. It's like all the things and the efforts putting into it is pretty extensive, which is a good thing too as well. I'll make a motion.
Second.
Here we go. The roll.
Hunter,
Yes.
Billings,
Yes.
Ackerman,
Yes.
Matthew, yes.
Third item is consider approval of employee guide, which was found in our packet discussed earlier. So look for a motion to approve that employee guide.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second the motion.
Billings,
Yes.
Ackerman,
Yes.
Hunter,
Yes.
Matthew, yes.
And final item is consider approval of our student handbooks for 25-26 school year, which again found in our packet plus discussed earlier today.
I'll make,
Go ahead.
yeah, I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Hunter,
Yes.
Ackerman,
Yes.
Billings,
Yes.
Matthew, yes.
All right, that's all of our new business items. So I'm gonna pause for a second. I know I wanted to make sure there was no other citizen comments.
Well, I don't know where this comes in, but.
Yeah, so I want to make sure
Yeah.
earlier when we have citizens comment section, it gives you an opportunity to state your name and address if you want to share any comments for the board to listen.
Okay, my name's Todd Hookrind. Live in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. My kid,
So for Fond du Lac, we wouldn't be able to.
well, no, I got a letter from the North Fond du Lac School District. He open enrolled here for his sophomore year, which was last year.
Sure.
And I got a letter 5/27/25 and this was the first I knew that this was happening. It stated, so me and the mother do live together. We've been together for 18 years, but I was not made aware of this situation at all until I signed the certified letter, which I am a mail person. So if I wasn't home, I would have never known any of this was going on. It basically says this letter serves as notification that the North Fond du Lac School District has denied Peyton Hookrind's continued open enrollment for the following reason.
So just one, with the respect of the student or staff, we just wouldn't use names.
Don't use names?
Correct, yeah, if you wouldn't
Okay.
mind.
No, okay. So it says the non-resident school district of North Fond du Lac has determined that the student was habitually truant from the North Fond du Lac School District during the previous semester. Gives you a state statute. Semester, the student was habitually truant. Semester 2, during the dates of 1/27/25 to 5/30/25, date of which open enrollment was terminated 5/30/25. Therefore, blank will be required to enroll in his resident district effective the end of the second semester. I didn't make copies of this one, but I did, and here it says that if I want to appeal this, I had appealed to the DPI within 30 days of receipt of this letter. So I did appeal to the DPI. I wrote an appeal here. I sent them all his medical records and it took 6 weeks for him to get back to me, but they basically said that they don't handle appeals like this, which really shocked me. So now I'm 6 weeks in because this tore me apart because my son struggled over in Fond du Lac.
I'm just gonna stop. I wanna stop the recording because I feel like we're getting this information that might not really, I don't wanna get your son or anybody else that doesn't need to be a live broadcast for people.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Oh, no, it's fair. I mean,
Okay,
I'd
so-
rather do this without the camera on.
Yeah, but I think ultimately too, if this is a concern for, the concern that you're going down, I think what would be appropriate is that you have a conversation with Dr. Mino, around the facts that you have, just so that, I mean, we're more than welcome to listen, but, we don't during our comment sections are going to respond to it. So I want to make sure your time's valued as well. And I think.
Well, I guess I didn't know what was going on because.
Yeah, no,
I looked at, when you were talking about websites and all that, I went on to somewhere and I clicked on board members and it said Terry Yeager.
sure.
And I kind of know Terry Yeager from a long time ago, so I was gonna ask him, how do I go about, because basically DPI told me, I've been running around for 2 months. DPI said, or the North Fond du Lac, when I met with Kayla Schmitting, told me exact words, once that decision was made, it's out of our hands. Exact words. So I went to DPI and they're basically saying we don't hear appeals like this. He goes, the only people that can reverse this would be the school board in North Fond du Lac or the superintendent. So I didn't know where, this is my last shot, where, I mean,
Yeah,
this has been bugging me for 2 months.
yeah,
And I don't know where, I'm just getting run around.
sure.
I mean, I didn't know that you were the superintendent. I know I gave a letter to Horace Mann's office over there, and I don't know if you even received it or not.
I have just got it. I was on vacation, so I
Well,
got
I
it.
know,
before,
I
so-
put that
yeah.
into
Yeah.
account,
Mhm.
but I know that we are on such a strict, I mean, it's close, it's 3 weeks, 4 weeks away from you guys starting. He picked his classes. I mean, I don't wanna take your
Yeah.
time here, but
It's not about the time piece. I think just the most appropriate resolution will come for what you already accomplished by going to Dr. Mino for this. The reason I brought this citizens comment back up, because I saw you here,
Yeah.
and I wanted to make sure your voice was being heard.
oh no, I appreciate it.
yeah,
I said here
so-
to midnight.
It is being heard, and I think the appropriate action then would be having the follow-up email or conversation with Dr. Mino.
Okay.
Okay?
I'm more than willing to meet with you at any time. So,
I
yeah.
really appreciate that. I mean, I'll just wait here to the end and maybe we can set something
That'd
up.
be great.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your time. All right, that is our last item, so we'll make this meeting adjourned as of 8:08 PM. So thank you, everyone.
Good night, everyone.